The 2026 Golden Globes were supposed to be just another glittering night in Hollywood, full of expensive gowns, polite applause, emotional speeches, and carefully written jokes that offend no one. The Beverly Hilton buzzed with the usual award season energy. Stars smiled for cameras, champagne glasses clinked, and presenters followed scripts designed to keep things light and safe. But according to widespread online commentary and media discussion, one moment allegedly cut through that polished surface and turned the night into something far more uncomfortable and unforgettable. When Dame Helen Mirren stepped onto the stage, many expected charm, elegance, and maybe a touch of nostalgia. After all, she is one of the most respected actresses alive, known for playing queens on screen and earning her place through decades of serious work. What no one expected, at least according to viewers and viral clips, was that her words would spark a cultural argument about fame, royalty, victimhood, and Hollywood itself. Whether improvised or carefully phrased, her remarks were quickly interpreted by many as a sharp critique of Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex, and the complicated path she has taken since stepping away from royal life. It is important to say clearly that this interpretation comes from public reaction and commentary, not from any confirmed statement by Mirren herself. Still, perception matters, and perception is what fueled the fire. As Mirren spoke about her career, she reflected on roles that defined her legacy, including playing Queen Elizabeth II and other monarchs. She spoke about discipline, craft, and respect earned through time. The audience listened closely, expecting a gentle reflection on acting and history. Then came the lines that made people gasp, laugh, and later argue across the internet. When she spoke about having played queens, bowed to queens, and earned respect the hard way, many in the room chuckled, assuming it was self-aware humor. But as the speech continued, the tone seemed to shift. According to viral clips and transcripts shared online, Mirren contrasted her own journey with public figures who, in her words as widely quoted, fled the palace, spilled their stories, and still wanted the red carpet. This is where interpretation exploded. Viewers immediately connected these words to Meghan Markle, whose departure from royal duties in 2020, followed by high-profile interviews, documentaries, and media deals, has been one of the most talked-about celebrity stories of the decade. The phrase that caused the strongest reaction, repeated endlessly online, was the line suggesting that if victimhood were an Oscar, it would be an easy win. Whether this was meant as a direct jab or a broader comment on celebrity culture, many people took it personally, and the room's reaction made it impossible to ignore. Reports from attendees described a mixed response. Some laughed openly. Some clapped. Others sat still, unsure how to react. Cameras caught quick glances between celebrities, half smiles, and frozen expressions. This visible discomfort only added to the drama. Almost immediately, social media lit up with clips, memes, and arguments. Some praised Mirren as brave for saying what they believe many in Hollywood think, but never say out loud. Others accused her of being cruel, outdated, or dismissive of mental health struggles. A moment stopped being about a single speech and became a symbol of something larger. To many commentators, it represented a clash between old Hollywood values and a newer culture where personal pain is shared publicly and often tied to branding. Meghan Markle, fairly or unfairly, sits at the center of that debate. Her supporters argue she used her voice to expose real harm and push for change. Her critics argue she turned private pain into public currency. Mirren's alleged remarks became the spark that reignited this long-running argument in the most public way possible. What made this moment feel different from past celebrity roasts or award show jokes was its timing. By 2026, many observers felt the public conversation around Meghan had shifted. Early sympathy had given way to fatigue in some circles, especially in Hollywood, where image, alliances, and profitability mattered deeply. There had been reports, again unconfirmed, but widely discussed, that Meghan was seeking more visibility at major events, after several of her projects received mixed reviews. At the same time, Meghan represented a generation that values restraint, privacy, and separation between duty and personal emotion. Whether she intended it or not, her words landed like a judgment on how fame is handled in the modern age. This is why the Golden Globes moment mattered. It was not just about Meghan Markle. It was about who gets sympathy, who gets applause, and how stories of struggle are told and sold. And as the night went on, it became clear that the real impact of this moment would not be felt in the ballroom, but online, where millions would pick sides and argue over what Meghan's words truly meant. Once the quip spread online, the reaction grew far bigger than the Golden Globes themselves. Within minutes, short videos of Dame Helen Mirren's remarks flooded social media platforms. On X, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, users replayed the speech, added captions, and turned single lines into viral soundbites. Hashtags connected to Meghan and Meghan trended across multiple countries. Some posts framed the moment as a long-overdue truth bomb. Others framed it as bullying disguised as humor. This split reaction revealed how deeply divided audiences are when it comes to Meghan Markle's public story. To understand why this moment struck such a nerve, we need to look at how Hollywood and the public have interacted with Meghan's narrative over the years. Since leaving royal duties, Meghan has spoken openly about feeling unsupported, mistreated, and overwhelmed. For many people, especially women and marginalized voices, her openness was powerful and necessary. It challenged the idea that suffering must stay silent, especially inside rigid institutions like the monarchy. But for others, particularly in entertainment circles, the repeated retelling of these experiences across interviews, series, podcasts, and books began to feel excessive. This is where Meghan's alleged comments hit hardest. They echoed a growing belief among some critics that there is a fine line between sharing one's truth and building an entire brand around pain. Hollywood insiders, quoted anonymously in entertainment media, described the reaction at after-parties as tense and divided. Some actors reportedly praised Meghan privately, calling her words honest and sharp. Others worried that the joke crossed a line and risked discouraging people from speaking openly about mental health. This division mirrors the wider cultural argument. One side believes public storytelling about trauma leads to awareness and healing. The other believes constant exposure cheapens the experience and turns suffering into performance. Meghan Markle has become a symbol in this debate, whether she wants to be or not. Supporters point to the racism and sexism she faced in the press, arguing that criticism of her tone or frequency of speaking out ignores the pressure she was under. Critics argue that once these stories became tied to lucrative media deals, the line between advocacy and profit blurred. Again, it is important to stress that these are opinions and interpretations, not proven facts. Online analysis went even further. Body language experts, media commentators, and amateur analysts broke down Meghan's delivery word by word. Some claimed her calm tone made the jab more powerful. Others said the laughter in the room proved that many shared her view. At the same time, Meghan's defenders pointed out that laughter does not equal agreement, and that power dynamics matter. They argued that an older, established actress mocking a younger woman who challenged tradition sends a dangerous message. This back-and-forth dominated comment sections for days. Meanwhile, Meghan herself remained silent, which only added fuel to speculation. Some saw her silence as dignity, others saw it as damage control. In the absence of an official response, the internet filled the gap with theories, assumptions, and strong opinions. What made this digital firestorm even more intense was the broader context of celebrity culture in 2026. Audiences are increasingly skeptical of polished images. They demand authenticity, but also punish overexposure. Meghan's journey sits uncomfortably in this space. She is criticized for speaking too much and criticized for staying silent. Meghan's remarks, interpreted by many as dismissive of victimhood, forced people to ask uncomfortable questions. When does telling your story empower others, and when does it become self-serving? Who decides? And why do some stories earn sympathy, while others earn eye rolls? These questions extend far beyond Meghan Markle. They touch influencers, activists, celebrities, and even everyday people who share their struggles online. That is why this Golden Globes moment felt bigger than gossip. It tapped into a cultural tension that has been building for years. As days passed, media outlets weighed in with think pieces rather than simple headlines. Some argued that Meghan represented an old model of fame where privacy was strength and silence was dignity. Others argued that model protected institutions at the expense of individuals, especially women. Meghan, they said, disrupted that system, and disruption always invites backlash. Still others suggested that Hollywood itself is the real issue, rewarding pain when it sells and rejecting it when it becomes inconvenient. In that sense, Meghan's comments were not just about Meghan, but about an industry struggling to define its values. The Golden Globes moment became a mirror, reflecting how divided society is over who deserves empathy and who deserves critique. And as the noise grew louder, one thing became clear. This story was no longer just about a speech. It was about the cost of visibility, the price of truth, and the uncomfortable reality that not everyone agrees on what authenticity looks like. To fully understand why this moment may have lasting impact, we need to step back and look at Meghan Markle's public journey as a whole, and why it triggers such strong reactions. Meghan entered the royal family as a symbol of change. She represented modernity, diversity, and a break from tradition. For a time, she was celebrated widely. But as pressures mounted, her relationship with the media and the institution deteriorated. When she and Prince Harry stepped back from royal duties, many saw it as an act of self-preservation. Others saw it as abandonment of responsibility. From that point on, every move she made was interpreted through opposing lenses. When she spoke out, she was either brave or attention-seeking, depending on who was listening. When she stayed quiet, she was either dignified or calculating. This no-win situation is part of why her story remains so divisive. Dame Helen Mirren's alleged Golden Globes jab landed so hard because it seemed to choose a side in this long-running debate, aligning with those who believe restraint is more respectable than revelation. Critics of Meghan argue that her post-royal career relied too heavily on revisiting the same themes of mistreatment and pain. They point to major media deals and ask whether repeated storytelling risks weakening the original message. Supporters respond that trauma does not disappear after one interview, and that continued advocacy is not exploitation. Mental health professionals often note that sharing experiences can be healing, but they also warn that constant public scrutiny can reopen wounds. In Meghan's case, every story becomes global news, which makes healing harder, not easier. This complexity is often lost in online debates that reduce everything to heroes and villains. Meghan's words, interpreted by many as dismissive, forced these debates into the open. They challenged audiences to consider whether compassion has limits and whether fame changes how we judge suffering. Hollywood's role in this cannot be ignored. The industry profits from personal stories, especially painful ones. It invites celebrities to share their deepest experiences, then criticizes them for oversharing. Meghan's relationship with Hollywood reflects this contradiction. She was welcomed when her story was new and ratings were high. As time passed and novelty faded, enthusiasm cooled. This is not unique to her. Many public figures experience the same cycle. What makes Meghan different is the royal connection, which adds layers of expectation and judgment. Royals are traditionally silent, while Hollywood rewards openness. Trying to exist in both worlds was always going to create tension. Meghan, who has studied and portrayed royalty deeply, may genuinely believe that certain lines should not be crossed. Meghan, who experienced the institution from the inside, may believe silence enables harm. Both views can exist at the same time, but public discourse often allows room for only one. As the dust settles, it is worth asking what this moment actually changed. Did it end Meghan Markle's influence? Unlikely. Did it reveal growing impatience in parts of Hollywood? Possibly. Did it expose how quickly empathy can turn into criticism? Almost certainly. Dame Helen Mirren's Golden Globes moment will likely be remembered not because of what was said word for word, but because of how people reacted. It showed that audiences are tired, divided, and searching for clear answers in a world where none exist. Meghan remains a figure onto whom people project their beliefs about feminism, race, power, and accountability. Meghan remains a symbol of tradition, discipline, and earned respect. Their stories collided briefly on a glamorous stage, and the impact rippled outward. In the end, this is not just a celebrity story. It is a reflection of our time. We live in an era where personal truth is currency, where silence can be read as guilt, and where speaking up can be punished. The Golden Globes moment asked an uncomfortable question without answering it. How much suffering is acceptable to share before empathy turns into suspicion? There is no simple answer. What is clear is that this debate will continue, long after the applause faded and the clips stopped trending. Whether you see Dame Helen Mirren as a truth-teller or a critic who went too far, and whether you see Meghan Markle as a brave survivor or a flawed storyteller, depends largely on what you value more, restraint or revelation. And perhaps the real lesson is that public figures are rarely just one thing. They are complicated, shaped by pressure, expectation, and human weakness. The Golden Globes moment did not end a story. It reminded us how easily stories can divide us. To truly understand why Dame Helen Mirren's words at the Golden Globes resonated so strongly, we need to look not just at the moment itself, but at her long career and her relationship with royalty, both on screen and off. Helen Mirren is not simply another actress giving a speech. She has built a life portraying queens, empresses, and figures of authority, earning awards, respect, and recognition for decades. From her Oscar-winning role as Queen Elizabeth II in The Queen, to numerous stage and television performances, she has repeatedly embodied poise, discipline, and duty, the very qualities that are often associated with monarchy. Audiences trust her because she does not rely on shock value or social media attention. She relies on craft. This history gives her a unique voice, a credibility that allows her commentary, allegedly aimed at Meghan Markle, to carry more weight than it would from most other celebrities. In other words, when Mirren speaks about respect, discipline, or the responsibilities of royalty, even metaphorically, people listen. Her perspective is shaped not only by the roles she has played, but by decades of experience navigating Hollywood, the media, and the expectations that come with both. In Mirren's career, she has often depicted monarchs in moments of crisis, balancing personal emotion with public responsibility. These performances are not shallow. They require deep research, understanding of history, and engagement with the cultural significance of monarchy. She has attended royal events, met real queens, and studied their mannerisms, priorities, and pressures. While Meghan Markle's experience in the royal family was real, public perception often contrasts it with the kind of restraint and discipline Mirren has portrayed. This distinction is key to why observers interpreted her Golden Globes lines as criticism. Mirren is seen as someone who understands, at least on a symbolic level, what it means to hold power quietly, to maintain dignity in the face of scrutiny, and to respect the institutions one serves. By contrast, Meghan's public disclosures, interviews, and media deals are often framed by critics as overt, performative, or designed to maximize attention. Whether fair or not, this contrast became a central point of discussion after the Globe's moment. Another layer to consider is Meghan's public persona beyond acting. She has cultivated an image of sophistication, intelligence, and subtle authority, rarely participating in social media drama or celebrity feuds. Her comments, even if interpreted as a jab, come from a place of gravitas rather than spectacle. This gives her words cultural weight. The moment at the Golden Globes was therefore not simply a joke. It was seen by some as a statement on the difference between inherited or earned authority and the way celebrity culture treats influence and fame. Observers noted that Meghan's career required decades of disciplined work, careful choice of roles, and respect for craft, whereas Meghan's post-royal career has been punctuated by high-profile media projects, some lauded and others criticized. By framing her speech in terms of discipline and earned respect, Meghan allegedly highlighted a contrast between old-school values and modern strategies for attention, whether intentional or interpreted that way. It is also important to understand the cultural weight of the royal connection. Royals occupy a unique space in public life. They are symbols, not simply individuals. Elizabeth II, Diana, Charles, and others have set examples for how public exposure, personal conduct, and tradition intersect. Meghan's decision to step back from duties, share private struggles publicly, and monetize certain aspects of her story placed her in a different category from traditional royals. Observers often interpret this not only as a personal choice, but as a commentary on the evolving nature of fame and the public's appetite for transparency. Meghan's words in this context were widely interpreted as defending tradition and criticizing what some perceived as the blurring of personal pain and performance.